In a quiet village tucked between lush green hills, life moved slowly, like honey dripping from an old spoon, sweet, predictable, and comforting. Children chased goats through dusty paths, elders played draughts under mango trees, and every evening the scent of stew floated from tiny kitchens as families gathered around flickering flames. There were no secrets here, or so people thought. And at the heart of this village was John, the local butcher, a tall, warm-eyed man with dreadlocks that swung when he laughed, and a blue and white checkered shirt stained proudly with years of chopping, slicing, and seasoning. John was no ordinary butcher. He was a friend, a neighbor, a smiling symbol of generosity. His butchery was never empty, his freezers always full, and his prices unbeatable. Even the poorest widow could afford meat from John's shop, and everyone swore his cuts were the softest in the region. Mothers said his meat cooked faster. Grandmothers claimed his stew cured the flu. His reputation wasn't just good, it was golden. But all that glitter had a shadow. People had started disappearing. First, a traveler passing through never reached the next town. Then a farmer, an old man who fed the village goats, went to the field and never returned. And then a teacher, who used to sing alphabets with the children every morning, vanished into thin air. No bodies, no blood, just silence. But nobody really questioned it. Why would they? John was still smiling, the stew was still warm, and the meat still soft. But suspicion, like smoke, finds its way through even the smallest cracks. And it began with Toby. Now Toby wasn't like the rest. He was the village clown, the one who could make a funeral burst into laughter. Known for his curiosity and loud humor, Toby was the kind of man who questioned everything and everyone, except John. Not until the day he stopped by the butchery for his usual rib cut and casually asked for an empty sack to carry some charcoal he'd bought from the market. "Hey, John," he called with a grin, "spare me a bag, unless you want me walking home like a dancing bear with this sack on my head." John chuckled, disappearing behind the counter. "Take this," he said, handing over a heavy, folded sack. "But don't blame me if your charcoal starts talking." Toby laughed, waved goodbye, and strolled off through the dusty lanes. But halfway home, something didn't feel right. The sack was wet, not soaked, just slightly damp, and it smelled not of charcoal or dust, but of rust, iron, blood, a sour metallic scent that made Toby's nose wrinkle. Under the nearest mango tree, his curiosity won. He set the sack down, untied it slowly, and what spilled out sent a shiver through his soul. A severed human hand, cold, pale, and stiff, its fingers curled as though grasping for one last prayer. Toby staggered backward, his laughter gone, breath ragged, mind spinning. His first instinct was denial. Maybe it was an animal's limb. Maybe this was a prank. But no. This hand wore a ring, the same ring old Mr. Kamau used to wear, the farmer who went missing last month. That wasn't just a hand. That was evidence. Rage and fear ignited within Toby, and he marched straight back to the butchery, sack in hand, storming in like thunder. "What in the name of God is this, John?" he shouted, slamming the sack on the counter. John's smile vanished, his eyes widened. "Toby, I gave you a bag, not a hand, you mean?" Toby bellowed. "So you're butchering more than goats now?" The shouting drew attention. Villagers passing by slowed. Heads peeked in. A crowd began to gather. Meanwhile, in another part of the village, a family sat for lunch with a visiting cousin from the city. As he chewed slowly, he paused and frowned. "This meat tastes odd," he said, setting down his spoon. "It's not beef and it's not goat. What is it?" The family chuckled. "City folks and their picky tongues," the host replied. But the cousin shook his head. "I've tasted all kinds of meat. This has a taste I can't place. It tastes like regret." Back at the butchery, the crowd pressed in, faces twisted with confusion and rising fear. "Explain, John," someone growled. "What is Toby talking about?" John backed into the wall, shaking, pale. "I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to," he whispered. "They made me do it." "Who?" "A gang," he muttered. "They kill. They disappear people. They told me, either get rid of the bodies or join them. I had no choice. I thought if I butchered the evidence, they wouldn't kill my family." Gasps erupted. Mothers covered their mouths. Elders crossed themselves. Someone fainted. "We've been eating human meat?" Toby said, eyes haunted. "We've been chewing our neighbors?" What followed was chaos, screams, wails, vomiting. Men who once joked about John's meat being magic soft now scrubbed their tongues raw. Women cried, clutching their children, realizing that every warm bowl they'd served might have contained someone they once knew. The police came swiftly. John was arrested. The butchery was sealed, its windows shattered by furious villagers. But the emotional wreckage was far worse. People couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't trust. Even those who had never bought from John began to doubt every piece of meat they'd consumed. Amara, once John's most loyal customer, stood outside her home staring at her cooking pot. "He used to pray with us," she whispered. "He blessed my child when he was born. How could he?" Her aunt answered softly, "Sometimes the worst demons are the ones who wear human smiles." And she was right, because John didn't look like a killer. He looked like family. That's what made it so terrifying. For weeks, the village became a ghost of itself. The laughter stopped. The fires burned lower. No one bought meat. The market became silent. People boiled beans, peeled yams, or went to bed hungry just to avoid questioning what was on their plate. Trust had died, and in its place was fear. Toby, though hailed as a hero, couldn't find joy in the praise. He barely spoke. The image of the hand haunted his dreams. He stopped joking. He stopped laughing. But every now and then, when someone asked how he discovered the truth, he'd force a smile and say, "Just checking for charcoal, that's all." And in that half-smile, you could see a man broken by truth. Years passed. The village healed, slowly. A new butchery opened, one with glass walls and visible cutting blocks. Every meat vendor was now watched like a hawk. Rumors faded, but the fear never fully left. The story of John's butchery became legend, told to children not to scare them, but to teach them, to question, to observe, to think twice before trusting blindly. And one evening, under the same mango tree where it all began, Toby sat with a group of boys. "Uncle, did you really find a hand in a sack?" one asked. Toby nodded, eyes distant. "Yes, I did." "And did people really eat people?" He exhaled slowly. "Sometimes the devil hides behind an apron and a smile." The children shivered. "And that's why," Toby continued, "you always pray before you eat. And never trust free meat. If it's too cheap to be true, it probably isn't meat at all." The boys nodded, eyes wide. The fire crackled nearby, and the night, as quiet as ever, held on to the memory of screams, stew, and secrets.